Hey, welcome back to the Weekly Word Outdoor Adventures. Welcome to Fletcher Park here, Cleveland, Tennessee. We're going to talk about Mr. Andrew Jackson Fletcher a little bit today. He was one of Tennessee's prominent politicians back during the Civil War and Reconstruction period. Died at the young age of 50, but he was Secretary of State in Tennessee. He was a state senator, ran for U.S. Senator, and some say at one point he was acting governor for a while when Parson Brownlow was sick as governor. But he had a farm here consisting of 70 acres here. Back that day it was just on the outskirts of Cleveland. But the family eventually donated the park, the farm to Cleveland to be a nice little park that we have here today. They play frisbee here and got hiking trails, and I don't know, there's all kinds of things to do. Candy's Creek runs down through it. But very few people know anything about Andrew Jackson Fletcher. So let's talk about him a little bit. And we're going to go over to Fort Hill Cemetery here, the city cemetery in town. Let's see if we can find his grave. We'll finish up there. Hey, we found his grave here on one of the high points of Fort Hill. A really nice monument. When I first read that plaque over at Fletcher Park, I'd gone to Fletcher Park for decades and off and on, and read the plaque one day and thought I'd like to know more about this Andrew Jackson Fletcher when I found out a little bit just from the monument at the park. And I found him in this book called Notable Men of Tennessee from 1833 to 1875, their times and their contemporaries. There's a chapter in here for Mr. Andrew Jackson Fletcher. One of the great things about the 1800s, the pre-TV, pre-radio times, is we had great orators. Whether they were politicians or whether they were preachers, people would come from miles around just to hear somebody speak. And if you're like me and you've watched these old westerns all your life, Bonanza and Gunsmoke and other ones, you're familiar with the term carpetbaggers. Well, I learned in this book that Andrew Jackson Fletcher is the man who's credited with coining that term, carpetbagger. He made a speech over in Nashville, but as I was reading about the carpetbagger, there's something else started jumping out at me. It's kind of interesting how history repeats itself over and over. So here we are from a speech shortly after the Civil War, and after the Civil War, Tennessee was being flooded with people from the north coming into the New South. And it was an immigration thing, you know, like here we are in 2026, and immigration is the big controversial problem today. So for the Christian, it's like, what's the Christian response to immigration? Should we, as the Bible says, be welcoming to the strangers? Of course. But who do we consider strangers, and who do we consider an invading army? Should we welcome people who are doing things the right way, or doing things coming in as lawbreakers and things? So I didn't even have that on my mind until I read this paragraph from his speech, also looking at the term carpetbagger, but here's the way he looked at it. I have to take my glasses off so I can read. In his speech, Andrew Jackson Fletcher said, "No one more gladly welcomes the northern man who comes in all sincerity to make a home here and to become one of our people than I. But for the adventurer and the office seeker who comes among us with one dirty shirt and a pair of dirty socks and an old rusty carpet bag, and before washing is done, becomes a candidate for office, I have no welcome for him." So there was the origin of the term carpetbag, but it says something about how he looked at immigration back then too. And we think of immigration today, just people coming in from other countries. But Tennessee's experiencing a great influx of immigration right now, people coming from the north again, people coming from California again. And that's because Tennessee has good government. We have something called a balanced budget amendment. And our taxes are low because of that. These other states have They've just spent on credit and spent on credit till they've almost bankrupted themselves. So they're trying to raise everybody's taxes up enough to get some of the money back into the government, and people just have to leave their homes because they can't stand it anymore. So to me, you hear the saying sometime, if you come here to be one of us, you're welcome, but don't come here trying to change us to be like the place that you came from. Now I go back to the Bible as I begin to think about that thought, about who should we welcome. We should be welcoming to strangers. And first of all, I thought about Lot living downtown Sodom, who was an immigrant himself, moved into Sodom. But when the Lord sent visitors to Lot, he was welcoming. He sat down at the table. He provided a meal for them. But he had to lock them Sodomites, them godless people, out. He didn't invite them in for dinner. He wasn't welcome to them. He had to lock the door to keep them out of the house while they could enjoy their dinner. And then I thought about another famous person in the Bible, Ruth. Remember, Ruth was a Moabitess woman. She's one of our sheroes of the faith. But she was going with her mother-in-law when times got hard back to Israel, back to Bethlehem. But she told her mother, Naomi, Ruth said, but your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. And I thought, there's some biblical precedent in both of those issues. That's how the Christians should be welcoming to immigrants. If people are willing to come in and assimilate, and our people be their people, and our God be their God. Otherwise, it'll be a cultural overthrow, and we don't need more godless people coming in that's with bringing different religions, but we want to be welcoming to those that do things the right way, and our people will be their people, and our God will be their God. All right, thanks for joining us on the Weekly Word. Hope we got enjoyed learning about Mr. Andrew Jackson Fletcher, right here from Cleveland, Tennessee. We'll see you next week, Lord willing, on the Weekly Word.